The security guard's hands were already on 73-year-old Marian Dupree's shoulders when she asked the question that would cost Transglobal Airlines $5 billion. What exactly did I do wrong? Her voice was steady, dignified, but the phone recording everything had already started. What happened next would echo through boardrooms across America, but in that moment, all Marian could think about was the embarrassment burning in her chest as passengers stared and whispered. She had boarded Flight 47 to Chicago just like any other grandmother. Carry-on bag, reading glasses, and a small smile for the flight attendant who had helped her find her seat. The business class ticket was a gift from her daughter. Something about finally flying like you deserve, Mom. Marian had protested, but her daughter had insisted. Now, 30 minutes before takeoff, she was being told she had to leave. No explanation, no apology, just the cold demand that she gather her things and come quietly. "Ma'am, you need to come with us," the security guard repeated, his grip tightening on her arm. But Marian Dupree hadn't raised a daughter who became one of the most powerful women in aviation by backing down from bullies. She stayed seated, her hands folded in her lap, and asked again, "What did I do wrong?" The passengers were recording now. She could see the phones pointed in her direction, capturing every second of her humiliation. But something in her daughter's voice from their last conversation echoed in her mind. "Mom, you taught me to never let anyone make me feel small. Don't you start now." The flight attendant who had smiled at Marian earlier now stood behind the security guard, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Mrs. Dupree, I'm so sorry, but there's been a complaint." "What kind of complaint?" Marian's voice remained calm, but her hands were shaking slightly as she reached for her phone. Not to record, she wasn't tech-savvy enough for that, but to call her daughter. A passenger reported suspicious behavior, the security guard said, his voice mechanical, rehearsed. "We need to investigate." Marian looked around the cabin. Every face was turned toward her, some with curiosity, others with the uncomfortable recognition of injustice unfolding. She had been sitting quietly, reading her book, occasionally glancing out the window. Suspicious behavior? The only thing suspicious was how quickly this had escalated. "I've been flying for 50 years, she said quietly. "I've never had a problem. I'm going home to see my granddaughter's piano recital." The security guard wasn't listening. He was looking at his radio, getting instructions from someone who wasn't even there to see what was happening. Marian realized with growing horror that this wasn't a mistake. This was a system working exactly as designed. A young woman in the seat across the aisle leaned forward. "Excuse me, but she hasn't done anything wrong. I've been watching her this whole time." Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Because tomorrow, at the same time, we'll bring you another story of Black people leading the way that you won't want to miss. "Ma'am, please step back," the security guard told the young woman. Then to Marian, "You can cooperate, or we can make this difficult." Marian stood up slowly, her dignity intact despite the trembling in her legs. "I'll cooperate, but I want to know what I'm being accused of." As they escorted her down the aisle, past the staring faces and recording phones, Marian couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was bigger than just her embarrassment. Her daughter had always told her that small acts of injustice were connected to larger systems of power. She was about to find out just how right her daughter had been. The airport security office was sterile and cold, with fluorescent lights that made everything look sickly. Marian sat in a plastic chair, her purse clutched in her lap, while two guards shuffled papers and made phone calls about her case. "Mrs. Dupree," the supervisor finally said, "you're free to go. There was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Marian's voice was sharp now, the composure she'd maintained on the plane finally cracking. "What kind of misunderstanding removes a paying passenger from a flight for no reason?" The supervisor wouldn't meet her eyes. The passenger who reported the concern has clarified their statement. "We apologize for the inconvenience." Inconvenience? As if missing her granddaughter's recital was just an inconvenience. As if the humiliation of being dragged off a plane in front of dozens of strangers was just an inconvenience. Marian's phone buzzed. A text from her daughter. "Mom, are you okay?" Someone posted a video. "It's going viral." Going viral. Marian barely understood what that meant. But she understood the tone in her daughter's text. This wasn't just about her anymore. She called her daughter back, and Camille answered on the first ring. "Mom, what happened? I've seen the video. Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, baby. Just tired. And angry." Marian's voice cracked slightly. "They treated me like I was some kind of criminal." The silence on the other end of the line was long and heavy. When Camille finally spoke, her voice was different, cold, controlled, dangerous. "Mom, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I'm going to take care of this. But first, I need you to tell me exactly what happened, every detail." As Marian recounted the incident, she could hear her daughter typing furiously on her computer. The clicking of keys got faster and more aggressive as the story continued. "Transglobal Airlines," Camille said finally, and there was something in her voice that made Marian shiver. "They're about to learn a very expensive lesson about how they treat my mother." The video had been viewed 3 million times in 6 hours. Camille Dupree sat in her corner office on the 47th floor of the Meridian Tower, watching the footage of her mother being escorted off the plane for the 100th time. Each viewing made her angrier, but also more focused. Her assistant knocked and entered without waiting for permission. A privilege earned through 5 years of managing Camille's impossible schedule. "The lawyers are here," Sarah said quietly, "and the PR team." And she hesitated. "The Transglobal executives are trying to reach you." Camille didn't look up from her laptop. "Tell Transglobal I'll call them when I'm ready. Tell the lawyers I want to know every legal option we have. And tell PR to prepare for a war." Sarah lingered in the doorway. "Camille, the board is asking if this will affect the Morrison deal." "The Morrison deal. $5 billion in government contracts for sustainable aviation fuel, with Transglobal Airlines as the primary purchaser. The deal that had taken Camille's company, Horizon Energy Solutions, from a mid-sized player to a major force in the industry. The deal that would revolutionize air travel and make Transglobal the most environmentally progressive airline in the world. The deal that was supposed to be signed tomorrow. "Oh, it's going to affect it," Camille said, finally looking up. "Just not the way they're hoping." Her phone buzzed with another call from Transglobal's CEO, Marcus Webb. She let it go to voicemail, just like the previous 12 calls. Instead, she called her mother. "How are you holding up, Mom?" "I'm okay, baby. But I'm worried about you. I know you're angry, but don't do anything that will hurt your business." "I'm not worth that." Camille's grip tightened on the phone. "Mom, you're worth everything. And they're about to find out what it costs to disrespect you." After hanging up, Camille opened her laptop and began typing. Not an email to Transglobal. They weren't worth her time yet. Instead, she was crafting something much more powerful. A statement that would change everything. But first, she had one more call to make. To her lawyer, her board, and her investors. Because tomorrow's signing ceremony was going to be very different than anyone expected. Marcus Webb was sweating through his $1,500 suit. The CEO of Transglobal Airlines stood at the head of the conference table, looking at the faces of his executive team and trying to project confidence he didn't feel. The video of Marian Dupree being removed from the plane was playing on the wall-mounted screen. And every time it looped, he could see another $1 million in market value disappearing. "Sir," his head of PR said carefully, "we've had 47 news outlets request interviews. CNN, NBC, all the major networks. Social media it's a firestorm." "What about damage control?" Webb asked. "Standard protocol: apologize, offer compensation, move on." His head of legal shook her head. "Sir, this isn't standard. The woman they removed is Camille Dupree's mother." The room went silent. Webb felt his stomach drop to his shoes. "Camille Dupree," he repeated slowly. "The same Camille Dupree who's supposed to sign the Morrison deal tomorrow." "Yes, sir. $5 billion in sustainable fuel contracts. The deal that would make us the greenest airline in the world." Webb's phone rang. Camille Dupree. He'd been trying to reach her for hours. "Put her through," he said, then activated the speakerphone so his team could hear. "Miss Dupree, I'm so sorry about this misunderstanding with your mother. We're conducting a full investigation, and I want to personally apologize." "Mr. Webb?" Camille's voice was ice cold. "I don't want your apology. I want to know how you're going to ensure this never happens again." We're implementing new training protocols immediately. Enhanced sensitivity training, new procedures for passenger complaints. And of course, we'd like to offer your mother compensation for her trouble. The silence stretched on for so long that Webb wondered if the call had dropped. Mr. Webb, Camille said finally, do you know what my mother was doing when your security team decided she was suspicious? No ma'am. She was reading a book about aviation history. Specifically, about the Tuskegee Airmen. She was trying to understand my business better, so she could be proud of her daughter's work. Webb felt sick. Ms. Dupree, the signing ceremony is tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll see you there. The line went dead. Webb stared at the phone, then at his team. Did that sound like she's still planning to sign? He asked. No one answered, but the fear in their eyes told him everything he needed to know. The Horizon Energy Solutions headquarters was buzzing with activity at 6 a.m. Camille had called an emergency board meeting and every member had flown in overnight. The stakes were too high for video calls. Let me be clear about what we're considering, said board member Robert Chen, his voice tight with concern. We're talking about walking away from the largest deal in our company's history, $5 billion. Our stock price will crater. Camille stood at the head of the table, her presentation remote in hand. Behind her, the wall screen showed two images, the video of her mother being removed from the plane and the contract signing that was supposed to happen in 4 hours. Our stock price will recover, she said calmly. Our integrity won't. If we sign this deal after what happened to my mother, we're telling the world that we'll accept any treatment as long as the check clears. Board member Patricia Williams leaned forward. Camille, I understand your anger. What happened to your mother was wrong. But destroying our company won't fix it. I'm not destroying our company, Camille replied. I'm defining what our company stands for. She clicked to the next slide, social media analytics. This video has been viewed 12 million times. The hashtag Justice for Marian is trending worldwide. We have a choice. We can be the company that stood up for what's right. Or we can be the company that sold out for profit. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. There's something else, Camille continued. I've been in talks with United Airlines. They're interested in a similar deal, smaller initially, but with room to grow. They've also pledged to implement the most comprehensive anti-discrimination training program in the industry. You've already been shopping the deal? Chen asked, his voice sharp. I've been preparing for this moment since I watched my mother get dragged off that plane, Camille said. The question is, are you with me, or do I need to find a new board? The vote was unanimous. At 9:30 a.m., Camille Dupree walked into the Transglobal Airlines headquarters, her legal team behind her. The signing ceremony was supposed to begin in 30 minutes, but she wasn't there to sign anything. The conference room at Transglobal Airlines was set up like a celebration. Champagne chilled in ice buckets, photographers positioned to capture the historic moment, and executives in their finest suits. Marcus Webb stood at the head of the table, the $5 billion contract spread out before him, trying to project confidence. When Camille Dupree entered with her legal team, the room fell silent. Ms. Dupree, Webb said, his smile strained. We're so glad you're here. I know yesterday was difficult, but we're ready to move forward and make history together. Camille walked to the center of the room, her heels clicking on the polished floor. She didn't sit down. Mr. Webb, before we begin, I'd like to show everyone something. She nodded to her assistant, who connected a tablet to the room's display system. The video of Marian Dupree being removed from the plane filled the screen. This is my mother, Camille said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. 73 years old, flying to see her granddaughter's piano recital. And your employees decided she was suspicious because she was reading quietly in her seat. Webb started to speak, but Camille held up her hand. I've spent the last 18 hours thinking about this moment. About what it means to do business with a company that treats its passengers, my mother, with such disrespect. She turned to face Webb directly. You called it a misunderstanding. I call it a pattern. And I won't be part of it. Ms. Dupree, please, Webb said, desperation creeping into his voice. We can fix this. New policies, new training, whatever you need. What I need, Camille said quietly, is to be able to look my mother in the eye and know that I chose integrity over profit. She walked to the table where the contract waited and picked up the pen. For a moment, Webb's face lit up with hope. Then Camille set the pen down without signing. "This deal is over," she said. "My legal team will be in touch about the termination clauses." The room erupted in chaos. Photographers scrambled to capture the moment. Executives shouted questions, and Webb's face went pale. But Camille was already walking toward the door, her team following behind her. "Miss Dupree," Webb called after her, "you are making a mistake. This will destroy both our companies." Camille paused at the door and turned back. "No, Mr. Webb. Dragging my mother off a plane was the mistake. This is the consequence." 6 months later, Marian Dupree sat in the front row of the United Airlines corporate headquarters, watching her daughter sign a $7 billion contract for sustainable aviation fuel, the largest deal in the company's history. The standing ovation was thunderous. "I want to thank United Airlines," Camille said into the microphone, "for proving that doing the right thing is also good business. And I want to thank my mother, who taught me that integrity isn't negotiable." The cameras flashed as mother and daughter embraced, and Marian felt tears on her cheeks. Not of humiliation this time, but of pride. After the ceremony, reporters swarmed them both. "Mrs. Dupree, how does it feel to know that your experience changed the entire aviation industry?" Marian looked at her daughter, then back at the reporter. "It feels like justice. But more than that, it feels like hope." "What happened to Transglobal Airlines?" another reporter asked. Camille's expression grew serious. "They lost more than our contract. They lost the trust of millions of passengers. Last quarter, they reported a $2 billion loss. 3 of their executives resigned, and they're still struggling to recover." "Any regrets about walking away from the original deal?" Camille looked at her mother, who was now talking animatedly with United's CEO about the new anti-discrimination policies the airline had implemented. "None," she said firmly. "Some things are worth more than money. My mother's dignity. My company's integrity. The message we send to the world about how we treat each other." As they left the building together, Marian took her daughter's arm. "I'm proud of you, baby," she said quietly. "I learned from the best," Camille replied. "You taught me that standing up for what's right is never a mistake." The video of Marian being removed from the plane now had over 50 million views. But it was no longer just a symbol of injustice. It had become a catalyst for change. Airlines across the country had implemented new policies, diversity training, and accountability measures. And in a small but significant way, the world became a little more just. Because sometimes the quiet dignity of one grandmother is worth more than all the money in the world.